Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope you had a good lunch. I am Cristina, and I've been with Bitdefender Cyber Threat Intelligence Lab since over 8 years now. And today I am here to speak about a research I did a while back together with my colleagues Alexandru and Adrian. And as the title states, the research is about what we call Netrepser, which is a targeted attack based on JavaScript files. I do hope you find the information useful, maybe to check it yourself. And if some of you have seen anything similar, please don't hesitate to contact us. The agenda for today is quite simple. First, we are going to review some general facts about the case we were investigating. Then we are going to take a dive into the technical aspects behind the attack. And in the end, of course, we will close with some conclusions. Now, as quick facts, we started to investigate this case in May 2016 when we saw the first sample. During our triage process, it caught our attention because of its unusual payload. The first file dropped on the disk was a JavaScript file. And as we took a closer look into it, we discovered that all the custom jobs instructed to be executed were also JavaScript files. Its main purpose is to collect and exfiltrate intelligence from the victim's computer. And as far as we have seen from our telemetry, the victims fall into the government sectors. We also estimated around 500 victims on our initial assessments. I do have to say that this is an estimated number based on our observations on the malware functionality, as we will further explain it. Now, for the technical details. As most of our cases, it all started with an email. In August, we found the infection vector in the form of an email, which was actually a forward message. The initial message belonging to Donald Spencer, which is the director of SigarGov. Based on their description on LinkedIn, they are a multi-strategy private investment firm with a real estate spanning from Mumbai to Moscow. I don't really personally know them, but apparently they're very big. I don't know if you are able to read the email. The content seems to be related to an acquisition event. And the attachment is a document file with the name related to the content of the email, name Russia Partner Drafting Guidelines for Directors Discussion. We also found similar samples. Their name was written in Cyrillic, revealing a special interest for the Slavic-speaking victims. Also, during our investigations, we also found different details which highlighted this interest also. Now, the document attachment had embedded macros in it, and when executed, it will prompt a message on how to enable macros in for three different Microsoft Office versions, 2010, 2007, and 2003. Once the macros are enabled, the payload is dropped on the disk in the form of a JavaScript file or a JavaScript encoded file. Also, through the include picture directive, when executed, a statistic is built on the number of victims per campaign. So the directive would ping the command and control server, announcing it that a new victim was successfully infected with a certain payload, which is marked by the name of the offended document. In our case, the Russia Partner Drafting Guidelines. Now, let's take a closer look to on the VB macros. So their purpose is to drop and execute the main payload, the main script. As far as we have seen, earlier attacks are based on JavaScript files. Newer ones switch to JavaScript encoded files. The first attacks have macro scripts which are simpler. They only drop the payload on the disk and execute it directly with wscript.exe. Newer ones are a bit more refined. They have macros which are heavily obfuscated, as it can be seen in the right side of the picture. And they are a bit more complex. So in background, they would save the payload in a shape in the document. They will load the payload into a variable and then delete it from the document itself. Before dropping it on a disk, the script would check the internet connectivity, so it will perform a GET request to the CNC server. If connected, only then will drop the payload on the disk and execute it with wscript.exe. The main payload is saved in the user profile or the local application data folder, depending on the campaign. It impersonates a legitimate tool called Complete Internet Repair. And in order to trick someone who would be suspicious and it will check the file, it has appended at the beginning of the file a comment with the description of the legitimate tool. Once executed, it will assure its persistence. It will set itself at startup, either through the scheduled task approach or through the registry keys, depending on the operating system versions. And it has two main functionalities. One, to download and execute the registration script, and then to download and execute the job scripts. The registration script. It is downloaded and executed by the main script, as I've told you. It is executed through the eval function, so the script isn't saved on the disk, it runs only in memory. It registers the infected machine to the CNC server, and for that it will send a fingerprint of the system containing a list of primary information, such as the list of the antivirus products installed, the free sprays on the primary disk, if the user is an admin or not, the operating system version, code name, which is a code hard-coded in the main script, and also the username. All these informations are sent to the server as parameters for the requests. The server responds with a unique bot ID, which identifies the infection. And with that, the registry script will create a configuration file where it will write the URL used for retrieving future jobs. This configuration file will be used by the main script in order to retrieve the jobs. Those jobs are also JavaScripts, which are executed only in memory. They don't touch the disk. Now, our first registration gave us an ID very close to 500. Subsequent registration to the CNC infrastructure confirmed that this ID is merely a counter, as the response were incremental. So this is why in the beginning I said that we've estimated around 500 victims in our initial assessments. I do have to say that sometimes if a machine gets infected twice, it will receive two different IDs. So this number remains an estimation. Now, because we are a community of very curious people, we couldn't stop wondering what is the purpose of this framework. So we took advantage of the fact that on the server side, no additional information is checked in order to identify a victim. And we decided to impersonate all the 500 plus victims and to request jobs in their behalf in order to see what they were instructed to do. Although most of our requests remain unanswered, showing us that the attackers have lost interest on some victims over the time, we were able to retrieve a number of jobs which helped us draw a functionality map for this framework. And we've identified 9 categories of such jobs. So I will quickly go through them. The first job is a functional job. It will ensure that on the device infected, the very known application WinRAR will be installed. So if not present, the job will download the application, a certain version that match the operation system, and it will install it. The application isn't downloaded from the official site, it is downloaded from their own repository. All the information which are slotted to be exfiltrated will be first compressed with WinRAR and only then sent to the CNC server. The next 2 jobs are in charge of fingerprinting the system. GetFileList will compile and upload a file with all the file names available on the system. And in order to do that, the job will execute these 2 commands on every available drive. The file names, together with the file sizes, will then be compressed with WinRAR. They will be password protected with the password US Secret Service, and then uploaded to the CNC server. This password will be used for every information that is exfiltrated. The next job will provide the attacker a detailed report about the system. When executed, the script creates a file named systeminfo.txt in the temporary folder, which will contain the following information: the Windows version, the username, information about the drive and storages, all the running processes, all the joint network domains and current domain users and groups, detailed topology of the network which hosts the infected computer, and information from Win32 system enclosure. Of course, all these information are password protected, compressed, and sent to the CNC server. The next 2 jobs are in charge of collecting credentials. Get mail and IM password would, of course, collect the passwords for all the email and IM accounts available on the system. In order to do that, they will download 2 free Nearsoft recovery tools, again, not from their official site, but from their own repository. These tools are email password recovery and IM password recovery. And all the information, again, compressed, password protected, and sent to the CNC server. Apart from exfiltrated username and passwords, the malware can also steal logged in sessions in form of browser cookies and stored password. So when received, this job will search for cookie files in different folders, and to get the stored passwords from the browser, it will use another Nearsoft recovery tool, the web browser passview. And of course, password protected, compressed, and sent to the CNC server. And because it's cool to have a keylog session, they also can send a keylogger, which is downloaded from their own repository. The first stage is to download the keylogger and save it in the temporary folder with the name msreport.exe. Before executing it, the job will ensure that there is no other process with this name. We believe that they are expected, that some victims already run a version of the keylogger, statement which is highlighted also by the fact that the names jobs contains version 2 in it. So there might be an older version of the keylogger which we weren't able to isolate it. Once started, the keylogger will save the keystroke in logs locally. There aren't any automatic tasks which uploads these logs to the CNC servers, so we presume that they exfiltrate this log using another complementary job, the path download. Now, path download. We believe that this is actually the core job of the framework. It is a customized job, specially built for each victim, and its purpose is to upload to the CNC server certain files from the computer. These files which are requested are compressed and password protected before they are uploaded. The paths of the files are hard-coded into the script. So this is why we say that this job is customized for each victim. And looking through the data they've requested, we could really get an insight about the attackers. For example, we've learned that they are art lovers and a big fan of Ludovico Macchetti because they really wanted this picture. They have requested it many times. We don't know if there's much more into this. We've searched for additional proofs, but we weren't able to find any of it. So we've stuck with the theory of big fans of the painter. But kidding aside, we've observed that their primary focus was to retrieve different configuration files. That would help them retrieve other sensitive information. For example, we have the ID 142. The path that they are requesting are written in Cyrillic. This is another proof that they are interested in Slavic-speaking victims. And taking a closer look in what they've requested, we can see that there are text files and backups for the Kerio software products. So Kerio software, as they stated, they help businesses connect, collaborate, and communicate securely. Apparently, they are used by 60,000 businesses and millions of users worldwide, so they're pretty spread. They have a wide variety of products from email management, firewall protection, and management for voice over IP applications. And for example, for the first product, they ensure collaborative Word documents and spreadsheets. They assure management of email accounts, calendars, contacts, tasks, chats, and so much more. So if the attackers get the authentication credentials for this kind of software, they will have access to all this sensitive information. They could retrieve confidential documents, they could retrieve emails, they could have their victim schedules, looking through the calendars, they will have the contacts and they could read messages and so on. So this job actually gives the attackers great power of spying on them. So this is why we say that it is actually the core job for this framework. Of course, they also have jobs dedicated to clean up after themselves. The first one installs a free tool from sysinternals, SDelete. Although all the third-party tools are saved in the temporary folder, SDelete is saved in the working directory of the script as csrss.exe or conhost, depending on the sample. SDelete utility is used to securely delete specific files on the system. We presume that they use it to clean up after the main script and override the delete files so that the forensics process could not recover any evidence. They download this utility not from the official site, but from their own repository. The second job is actually a KillSwitch. After the exfiltration process is complete, the malware downloads this job in order to clean up after themselves. Their purpose is to delete every trace, and depending on the level of infection or depending on the campaign, this operation differs from one victim to another. But putting together a list of actions they can do, well, they can delete all the related registry keys, all the related schedule tasks. They delete files and folders from the temporary folder and from the working directory. And also they terminate all the processes related to the infection. As a last observation, I would like to mention a characteristic that helped us pivot around and find new similar files. During our analysis, we've seen that all the third-party tools and the keylogger were packed with an algorithm that seemed to be proprietary for the attackers. The packer had shifted a piece of code in the text section, and the purpose of that code was to unpack the actual tool which was found in the resources of the packer. In order to decrypt that piece of code, an unshifted algorithm is called several times. This algorithm uses a master key and several secondary keys, and it is called with each time with a master key and a secondary key. As far as we have seen, the secondary keys are the same among many samples. The master key differs each time. After it is decrypted, the program jumps to that code, which would unpack and decrypt the tool and then execute it. So to sum up, we started looking into this in May 2016. The purpose of the framework is to collect and exfiltrate intelligence. As far as we have seen in our telemetry, the victims fall into the government sector, and we've estimated around 500 victims in our initial assessment. And from its functionality and the information they exfiltrated, we believe that it might be used as pre-campaign for another more elaborate attack. And with that, that would be it. If you have seen anything similar, please don't hesitate to contact us. And if you are interested in more IOCs or technical details, you can find the white paper on our company blog. So I would like to thank you all for your attention.